Hey girl, you're listening to the Bright Life Podcast, all about ways to stay inspired, chase your dreams, and find more gratitude in the highs and lows of the journey. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson. I run a content marketing agency and travel the world as a digital nomad, just a suitcase, my hubby, and a trusty laptop in tow. I'm a self-growth junkie, a believer in other big-hearted women, and I'm all about sharing tips, tricks, lessons learned, and encouragement so we can all live our biggest, brightest lives. You ready? Let's do this. Hello. Welcome to today's episode. Today we're talking about something that I believe is so important if you are creating the life of your dreams and your biggest, brightest possible life, whatever that means for you. And that's about how to make friends with your nerves and to get over fear and onto whatever it is you're dreaming about. This is kind of a funny topic if you know me personally, because I'm definitely not this daredevil kind of person. Like, I'm by nature very cautious. I tend to, think things through from all different angles. But in creating this life that I love, whether it's, the traveling or running businesses or even doing like a Facebook Live or posting on social media, I really had to actively find ways to get over my fears and just get out there and go for it. And so I'm going to try and share a few things that I like to remind myself of that are like a little pep talk for both you and me. And I hope that there's some nuggets in here that really help you as well, and that you can just save this episode and turn to it whenever, you need that pep talk or you need that reminder that you totally got it. All right. So today is all about how to make friends with your nerves, how to feel the fear and do it anyway. Okay. And so the very first thing that I like to think of is sometimes the best way around is through. So just keeping in mind that we can talk this whole episode about ways to, lower your fear, to make you feel better. But at some point, you might still feel that fear and you might have to just go out there and do the thing anyway. And this has been the case for me when it comes to like launching this podcast, when it comes to sending, a note to a really high profile person trying to pitch a publication, when it comes to announcing that, I've started a business, like any of those things, even the little small things, like I mentioned, like the getting on social media, doing my first video, creating my first, Instagram story. All of those things come with some level of fear. And the fastest way to get over the fear is to just do the thing. And you'll notice that it lessens so much from that point on. So even for me, that first episode of getting the podcast out there, I think I've mentioned this before, that it took me like almost a year of like talking to my, business mentor and getting up the nerve. And then now when I record it, I'm so excited and I'm excited to share it with you. And I don't have as much of those same fears that I did in the beginning. So just knowing that like that beast kind of grows the more you ignore it and the more you avoid it. And if you can just do the thing, from then on, that fear gets less and less. It's kind of like when you're about to give a speech, how they've said that those first 10 seconds, leading up to getting on that stage are when your adrenaline is the highest and you'll probably feel the worst in those few seconds. But once you get out there and you get going, your body knows what to do. Like your brain goes somewhere else. Those emotions subside a little bit. And I really think that that's true for just conquering your fear, like doing the thing. Just know that up until you do it, it's going to build and build and build. But once you do it, from that point on, you can kind of turn that corner and it gets so much better. So that's one thing to remember. Also, consider that it takes about 90 seconds for an emotion to pass through you. So in our culture, I think we're really good at either avoiding or numbing emotions. We have technology, we have social media, we have like wine nights where we'll do a lot to get away from actually feeling the uncomfortable emotions. But what I've found is if I can just go to that place where I notice something's coming up, If I can just go and I can sit with it and I can feel how it kind of rises and falls within my own body, it does eventually pass. And you realize that it's really just this storm of thoughts that are reacting in your own brain, but it's not that they're true. It's not that you have to, shy away because of them or act because of them. You can almost just sit with them. And when you really feel it and you really go there, it does take about 90 seconds for it to subside. And when you think about it, like a minute and a half is not so bad to feel that fear and get over it, right? And so, of course, it might keep coming back, especially if you prolong actually taking action. And that's why I start with the fastest way to get over this is to just do the thing you're afraid of. But just knowing that if you're feeling that height of emotions and you're feeling that swell up inside you, you can also give yourself a second to just sit, to feel the emotions, and to realize that there's nothing to really fear. Like the worst thing that can happen when you're sitting with those emotions is you feel them, they feel really intense, that you might bring up even more anxiety or something like that. But that's all they are. They're just emotions and they can't hurt you beyond that. So that to me is kind of comforting in a way. It's like instead of avoiding the fire, just feel it and realize that you're strong enough to handle it. All right. So that's a great thing is that 90 seconds, if you can sit with the emotion, if you can avoid that temptation to numb out or to find some kind of distraction, then you're really going to do a lot for realizing you can handle that fear no matter how strongly it comes on, and you can get to the other side of it. Another thing that helps me kind of lessen the story I'm telling myself about a situation is to realize that it's either going to be a great story in the sense that it went well, or it's going to be like a really good story in the sense that it's funny and horrible to laugh about with someone later. So, this has happened so many times in my life. Like I once did a sprint triathlon. And, I was so nervous to do this. Like I'm athletic, like I'm active, but I'm not, a triathlete by any means. And so it was really something that a few of my friends and I were doing to venture out of our comfort zone and try something new. And within the first few seconds of that triathlon, like I gulped up a tremendous amount of lake water. Like I kind of, freaked out and didn't go that well, right? I wasn't going to win any medals, but it was kind of just like a funny thing to laugh about at the end of the day. Like it, same with that Bikram yoga class that I once did in the middle of this New York City heat wave in summer. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I basically started to see stars because it was like 120 degrees in that room. Like compound that with New York City humidity and warmth. And so they basically had to stop class, like have everyone turn and look at me, give me this sugar packet in water. And that is not how I would imagine this fun little new adventure of a Bikram class going. But that's how it went. And so for me, I ended up writing this really funny piece about it, later on that I got to post publicly. And I always kind of just smile to myself now that that's like an adventure. And I realized that even when it goes worse than you think, like I definitely didn't have this great smooth, experience where I was like, oh, that was great. I had nothing to worry about. Like it went probably worse than I imagined. But at the end of the day, like it's not that bad. I don't know any of those people. Like I moved on with my life. They moved on with theirs. They probably, laughed about it with their partners later that day. But if that's the worst that can happen, like that's not that bad, It's a good story to laugh about later. And I apply this to anything, whether it's travel mishaps that I've experienced, missing trains or losing luggage, whether it's like, dating experiences of going on, crazy dates in my 20s, whether it can be anything. Like it can be even, the tech doesn't work when you go, on Facebook Live for your business. It doesn't matter. Just give yourself that feeling of at the end of the day, I'm either going to be smiling because it went so well and so much better than I imagined, or I'm going to be smiling because I now have a really funny story to tell to everyone I know and I survived, Another thing about that is anxiety and excitement. I like to think of them as the exact same emotion, but one's like the positive charge and one's the negative charge. So if you think about going down like a roller coaster, you're probably excited or anxious, right? It feels the same, but one causes you to like raise your hands in the sky and to smile, like that excitement where you're going, ah, or one causes you to put your hands in the air and like freak out and you're screaming like, ah, right? Like, so I might sound like a crazy person doing that, but there's a difference, right? It's subtle. It's like the excitement is saying, this is so fun. Oh my gosh, how exhilarating. And the anxiety is saying, oh my gosh, this is so scary. I'm not going to make it through this. And so just kind of realizing like when you feel that anxiety coming up, I like to just look at it lovingly and say, oh my gosh, I'm really excited right now. This is something I've never done. Of course I'm excited right now. And kind of just give it that lens, because that just creates such a better feeling in your body than looking at something and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious, I'm so scared, I'm so stressed, and going down that rabbit hole, right? Another thing I like to remember is that you feel the most alive in the moments that scare you the most. And that's a pretty good feeling if you think about it, because, by the time you are 30 or 40 or 50, you probably have so many experiences that feel like other experiences in your life. You have such a routine. You know how you like to do certain errands, just things around the house. You'd have your favorite place you go on the date. All that stuff is so routine. And so how amazing when you have a new experience that is so new and so exciting or scary, and it wakes you up again and makes you feel alive and new for the first time. Like I have this little niece who I love, and everything to her is this brand new experience, and so there's so much life to that. But it doesn't mean that just because we have our routines and our ways of doing certain things and we've experienced so many of these things already, that you can't bring that into your life. But the thing is, the way you bring it in is by doing something for the first time. And that will probably have some element of fear or being scared to it because it's new. But if you can get that exchange of this makes you feel alive again, this makes you feel connected to your life, that's worth it. Right? Like so few things can do that after a certain point when everything is so, just routine. So how amazing that if you can get that feeling of feeling alive and know that you're going to have to feel a little bit of fear and do something a little bit new to get it. It makes it worth it, right? Like you can look at this experience and just think, yeah, I'm going to maybe be a little scared, but gosh, I'm going to feel so alive in this moment. Like I haven't done anything like this ever. So I just try and think about it like that, and it makes me feel a lot more hopeful and positive about something that may be new and otherwise a little bit scary. For me, these things are like, Times Square in New York City, or traveling and like selling our belongings and going into these little tiny Airbnbs and finding the address down these little alleyways and having to lug our suitcases up all these stairs. Again, like the sprint triathlon, I got into this pattern years ago where every single month I would do like one new thing. And that really helped me to just embrace that there was always going to be something new in my life, whether it was the traveling, whether it was the sprint triathlon, or the Bikram yoga class. That was another one of those ideas from this one new thing I tried every month. I would do other things like I tried kayaking. Once it really scared me, the idea of just sitting and having a dinner at a bar alone. I was younger. I didn't feel as comfortable just going and sitting alone somewhere yet. And so I did that. I have, lists and lists of things that I would do in this pursuit of like finding these things that made me feel really alive because they were really new. So it doesn't have to be big things. It can be as simple as taking a new class. And again, it all goes back to like you either get a great story in a good way or you get a great story in a funny way after. The last little thing that I always think of that gets me out of the fear and makes it more so worth experiencing it is just that the breakthrough that you're looking for is often somewhere you've never been. And so I started to notice this when I was having those one new thing adventures each month, where, the first time when I did that sprint triathlon and I got an idea when I was running, it was about something I'd been trying to solve for a long time in my head. And then, another time I was on another adventure and another idea came to me that I'd been trying to solve for a while. I started to realize that it's sometimes this new experience that gives your brain the space to think about things in a new way. So if you're just living the same day over and over again, you're having the same experiences, you're talking to the same people, you're going to the same coffee shop and eating the same turkey sandwich for lunch, you're not really giving your brain and your energy a way to problem solve in a different way. You're not giving it anything new to go off of. And so for me, even if I still feel afraid doing things, I'm now so much more motivated to do them because I know it's going to wake up a part of my brain that hasn't been activated yet by my same old circumstances. And it's going to give me a solution or an idea or a way of thinking about things that I hadn't gotten because I'd been living and thinking about things the same way. So that's kind of another thing too, where it doesn't remove the fear, but it almost makes the fear worth it because you get something out of it. It's like a little reward you get for going through the fear and doing something anyway. Okay? So I want to just leave you with, 2 ways to actively start to make friends with your nerves. Nothing crazy, but you can try these in your life and just notice the difference they make. And that one is what I used to do, which is that practice of choosing one new thing per month to do, because you start to realize that time and time again, you can handle it. You start to realize your body patterns around feeling the fear bubble up and then doing the thing, and then it's okay and you survive. You start to realize that even if you're embarrassed or something doesn't go the way you want it to, that you can handle that. There's not as much fear you need to feel behind that. So I love that practice of just, write a list right now of 10 things that you are afraid to do or you kind of want to, but you're not sure, whether it's a class, whether it's a place to go, whether it's just going to a restaurant and sitting and bringing a book and reading alone. It can be the smallest, silliest things, but there's your list of, for the next 10 months, of one thing that you can do each month. And you'll just start to realize that you will feel nervous beforehand. You might try and talk yourself out of it, but if you go through with it, you will get more comfortable with that feeling of fear. You won't give it as much precedence, and you'll start to get these breakthroughs and this aliveness that makes it worth really feeling it and going through it anyway. The second thing that I would offer is think of the scariest thing that you can think of right now, like what's on your heart that you've been wanting to do that you're afraid to do, whether it's creating like an online dating profile or traveling abroad alone or starting the business or the blog or the podcast. And then just take one step forward to that. You can either do the thing, right, and just get over the fear because now the thing's done. But if that's too much for you right now, just get that positive momentum going. Like take one step forward and then another step. I've talked about this, on this podcast before, but I just believe so much in the power of that positive momentum building from one small step after the other. So either go make that list, have something each month to try that's new, or start with one really big fear and take one positive action toward it, followed by another. Don't even think about the second step. Just start with the first, and then that will beget the process for you. Okay, so there's a lot of ideas in there. This is something I could probably have a whole nother episode on because every time I go after one fear, I learn something different, and I'm always actively trying to push my own boundaries and my own confidence level and just get out there in pursuit of a life that really feels bright and big and beautiful for myself. And so I'll be sure to share more ideas, but let me know if you try one of these, like which one inspires you, which one you're going to try. And I just would love to know what's most helpful to you, or honestly, what questions you still have about this. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening in, and can't wait to hear what you go after and how these little tips make a difference. Thank you so much for listening in. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much to me if you share it on Instagram stories and tag me so I can personally thank you for helping get the message out. I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. Until next time, talk to you soon.